Urban Therapy with Sunshine 752, and this is your daily go-getterism number 864 for February 13th, 2017. All right, so tonight I want to talk to you about guilt versus innocence. Guilt versus innocence. Have you ever felt guilty? Have you ever knew that you were innocent? And we're not talking about the court system. We're not talking about anything legal. Although I guess it would be easy to flip it over into that conversation, into that realm. But that's not really what we're talking about. When we talk about guilt or innocence, we're talking about the way we feel. The way we feel about the things that we do. The way we feel on the inside about when we have to explain ourselves to somebody or something because of our actions. Maybe our actions were taken out of context. Maybe we actually did do something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you feel guilty. Or if you do something good, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to feel innocent. I guess the question that we really have to ask ourselves is, what are we really talking about when we use the word guilt? Now, like I said, take it away from the legal system, because that's a different set of circumstances that we deal with when we talk about the word guilt. Guilt is the one thing, it's the one emotion that human beings feel independent of all other species. Animals out in the wild don't know what guilt is. Even our domesticated animals would not know what guilt was had we not taught it to them. And even with that, the only reason that they understand what guilt is, or should I say the only reason that they ever feel guilt, is because they fear some type of punishment. When let's say we leave something on the table, food on the table, and we leave it for just a second, and one of our pets jumps up there and eats the food, or if one of our pets knocks over something that breaks or whatever in our absence, when we leave our pets unattended. Sure, the pet may look guilty, may have that guilty look on their face. It may even be like, but it's not because they feel bad about what they've done. They don't have any conception of bad and good as far as our reasoning and understanding is concerned. But what they do know is that they might get hit with that newspaper, or they might get yelled at, or they may be punished, put inside of a cage or something like that. They understand that. So that's the guilt that they would feel. They feel bad because of the punishment that they're going to receive. It's not that they feel bad about what they've done. How do they know? How do they know? You know, knowing and understanding people's emotions based off of circumstances is a human idea. So that's where that's part of where we start building our sense of what guilt is and what innocence is. So have you ever done something where somebody may have looked at you like you were dead wrong, or you may have known that in another scenario maybe you would have been dead wrong, but you don't feel any guilt about it? You feel innocent, even if you got caught red-handed. You feel innocent because you feel like that's something that you should have done. It was something that needed to be done, and even though it wasn't your right, or it was against the rules for you to do it, you still felt justified in it. Like when you get stopped on the street for a routine traffic stop, do you feel guilty when the cop comes? Maybe some of you do. But for the most part, especially when your skin is like this, a lot of times when you get stopped by the police, regardless of what you've done, sometimes this is what may determine whether you get a ticket or not. It may determine whether you go see the precinct that night or not. And we've had enough examples of this to know that there's a certain amount of truth to that whole thing. So maybe you did something that was supposed to be against the rules or bad, but you didn't feel any guilt about it. When you retaliate against somebody for something they've done to you, maybe you hurt them a lot more than they hurt you, But do you feel guilt about that? Or do you say, nah, I'm innocent? He or she had it coming. That's what they get for this, that, and the third. That may be just the way you feel. And it may be justified at that point. What about on the flip side? Have you ever felt guilty about doing something good? How can you feel guilty about doing something good? That's probably what y'all asking. But it's easy to feel guilty about doing something good. Like maybe the good that you're doing is going to hurt later on. Could be. You know, like sometimes when we do the right things, we do them for the wrong reasons. So let's say, like, let's take it back to when we were teenagers. Maybe we helped our friends sneak out of the house or steal their mom's car or something like that. You know, you never know. You know, like, yeah. Nah, that was a bad example because that's actually helping somebody do the wrong thing, and maybe we felt innocent about that. An example of doing something good and feeling guilty about it. Here you go. When we have to discipline our children, sometimes we feel guilty as hell about it. Sometimes we feel like, oh man, I don't want to punish them. I don't want to put them on punishment. I don't want to whoop that ass. Oh my gosh, they're going to be mad at me. We're not going to be speaking for a few days. I'm going to have to deal with this crying. But you realize that you have to do what you have to do in order for them to get the discipline to let them know that they shouldn't do some things that could potentially hurt them or others in the process. But it doesn't mean that we're not going to feel guilty about it. We still feel guilty about it. It's crazy. But it's true. It's true. And it's just one of those things that we have to deal with. But it's not an easy thing to deal with. It can be pretty difficult. But yeah, sometimes we can feel guilty about doing the right thing. Doing the right thing sometimes makes us feel guilty. Especially if it's in a club atmosphere. Because see, as you learn and you grow, your version of what's right and what's wrong changes. It changes. Like when we're younger, when we're in our teenage years, pre-adolescent years, and in our teenage years, many people are taught that sex is bad. And that's how you can get diseases. That's how you can get pregnant. You know, women, little young girls may have been told that these little boys out here don't want to do nothing but put their thing in them, and then they'll just leave them out there to dry, fend by themselves after they break your heart. Yeah, some of us have been taught that, and all of that comes from sex. So that's a hell of an introduction into your sexual world when you think that the value of intimacy is already sub-zero. But many people have been taught that. They've been taught exactly that, and it's hard to break out of that type of thinking. But we have to do our best, and sometimes it feels like our best just ain't good enough, but we still have to do it. So it can be a little tough. It really can. So when we start talking about feeling guilty or feeling innocent, it's interchangeable. It can arise by circumstances. And it's left up to us to decipher between what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong, what's acceptable, what's unacceptable. It doesn't mean that it's going to make our job of feeling guilty or innocent any easier. It may, most of the time, crowd the issue, especially if you're a free thinker. So you have to go against the grain a lot. Sometimes you may feel guilty about going against the grain. Does everybody that goes with the current or with the grain feel innocent, though? It's hard to say. But I'll say this, though. When it comes to feeling guilty or innocent, so much of it has to do with how we grew up, what you were taught, what we learned to be acceptable and non-acceptable, what we learned to be good and bad. It shapes so much of our true feelings about guilt or innocence. Because if you took the words guilt or innocence away from this camera and took it to somewhere where you know people, if you ask them what their conception of guilt and or innocence is, I can guarantee you that you're going to get a variety of answers. None of them the same. I bet you. It's one of those things. And it's one of those things that we have to deal with, and we have to deal with it on a constant basis. But if we keep at it, we may have no reason to feel any guilt. It's never a bad thing to find out what's going on with you or to seek more knowledge. Good things happen to those who wait. Great things happen to those who grind. And anything can happen to those who go for theirs. So go hard, go for yours. And remember, when it comes to guilt or innocence, one of the things that separate humans, or should I say men and women, from the animals of any species, whether they're domesticated or out there in the wild, is that we have reasoning, logic and reasoning, and we feel guilt based on our experiences. A lion out in the wild will never cry over eating a gazelle. They realize it's the natural order of things, and these are the way things have to happen in order for civilization or any species to survive. That's just what we have to deal with. The Daily Go Getterism show is every single day, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Call-in number is 319-527-6199. Once again, the number to call is area code 319-527-6199. And I will holler at y'all later. Wait a minute. blogtalkradio.com/Sun752. Peace. There you go.